In the last video, we discussed how retail is dying and some explanations on what is going on. The the ability to travel from place to place is lengthened, and anything in between has started to fail. Not only that, we have online resources where we don't have to go to a place to buy an object, which means that the entire over-the-top hyperreality really doesn't work for us anymore, especially since we've all become accustomed to the hyperreality itself. So this big event to go to the mall just isn't working anymore, and we're starting to get into more online stuff and to order things through different methods. For this video, I'm going to discuss the online civilization and what it's like and the people within it. I'm going to designate it in the same way that you would if you were to travel to a new land. So we've come to a new land, and by the way, all these pictures are from the Minecraft wiki, the minecraftgamepedia.com, and I just wanted you to know that that's where all the photos, or where all the Minecraft photos came from. It's the same idea. You come into a new land, and it's completely new to you. Everything there is foreign, and although you've heard things about it, there are all sorts of new and interesting things to do. The natives are people who were born and raised with the internet as part of their lives. They speak in mimetic formats that we call memes, and you simply have to reference it for people to understand, or to create a copy of something and then reference the previous thing. So the natives are mostly under the age of 30, and they have had this technology their entire lives, and they understand how it works and how to use it, and they are very much so into it. Each one of the things that you're looking at is literally just a meme that they use to communicate with each other and to tell jokes. The world outside of the internet will look at these things and it will actually be unable to understand the purpose behind them, because this is a native language. The natives are speaking in their language, and the people who are looking at it do not understand it. And because of this, there are times where references or things that they see will be misunderstood. Well, okay, I'm going to put it a little blunter. Where the nationalism you see from outside of the internet will declare something to be evil, because obviously those foreign people are doing it, so we can't like them. And since the natives are foreign in our understanding, because this is a new land, they are obviously given an evil understanding. For instance, Pepe the Frog is just a common meme where you just kind of tell jokes about going through weird stuff in life. However, some groups have promoted National Socialism, and because of this, there have been people who have been proclaiming that Pepe the Frog is racist, even though he's not. He was never racist. The creator didn't make him racist. The vast majority of the people who make memes out of him are not racist. But because some use it, and because the people who are not natives are looking at it in such a weird way, they do not understand. And that is how it's being dealt with. But there are dangers. You do not always know who you are talking to. Somebody can claim to be a doctor and be lying. There are people on the internet who are constantly trying to convince other people to take off their clothes in front of a camera. And I'm not telling that as a joke or as some kind of scary thing. I mean that in a literal way. That was one of my early studies was, why is all of this porn showing up, on these forums that I'm on? And I was able to look at it I said that wrong. I was able to analyze what was going on and who was doing it and why. And I realized that there were people who were purposefully talking to all sorts of people and convincing them to do this because it was cool, and they used kind of social abilities to convince people to do these things. And it was honestly awful, an awful study. It took me years to recover from it. But what these people didn't realize is once you post something on the internet, it is permanent. And you might try to erase it. And a few groups actually have, but they used a lot of power to do this. but for the most part, it is online and it can be accessed by whatever native wants to. And in this case, we always hear the term hacked or stolen. Really, that's just people who figure out your password and sign in as you and post things about you or through you or something like that. So I wanted you to know that a lot of this is, just be safe. For your passwords, choose out 4 passwords that are just, good passwords, fit all the descriptions, and just use those 4. And if somebody tries to steal one, you get a new one, and then you replace whichever place was using that password with this new one, and so you still have 4. In this way, most people aren't going to get a hold of your account. It's just as simple as that. But there are all sorts of dangerous things. I think the most dangerous one is called doxing, and not just doxing, but doxing in a very harmful way. There have been people who have had bombs mailed to them. There have been people who have had the police called on them. And I don't mean, the police were called because they were doing bad. I mean, the police were called as a way to get revenge on this person. So what somebody would do is they'd get angry at somebody and they'd call the police and tell the police this person is some kind of terrorist. You got to get him now. And the term is called being swatted, where literally the SWAT team shows up and arrests everybody and possibly shoots people. One person. There have been people who have died from this. And this is entirely because they PO'd somebody and they looked it up online, and this person found out about the person they dislike, looked up information about them online, called the cops, and did all this stuff. Now, everything up to the point of calling the cops was not evil in and of itself. In fact, I've met a lot of people who go, why haven't you looked me up on the internet? I don't understand. This makes no sense. So the evil, mastermind with a mask and all that stuff really doesn't exist. Our concepts of hacking really don't exist. It's really just a guy sitting there just going, is it going to do it? Going to eat some burritos. I mean, it's just kind of sitting there waiting, honestly. But that's difficult to explain to people. There are dangers in this wild new internet. There are dangerous people. There are people who are trying to control you. There are people who you don't know or who you don't like on the internet. It has become very difficult for people to stop forums and other type of websites like that for terrorist groups to form up, release information, talk to each other, talk about what they're going to do next, and enable a plan. And that should give you an idea. The internet is being used by terrorist groups. The internet is being used by groups that you won't like. And that's all part of this new world. Is some of it is dangerous. There are dangerous animals. You should know that you are going into a dangerous area. However, the majority of the people on it are safe. To help you deal with all of this new information and new things, we have something called Colonies. And the Colonies are Facebook or Twitter, and they've basically etched out a part of the internet, and they have links throughout the internet, but they work very, very hard so that you only get what you want. And to be honest with you, what they've been doing even more so is they've been taking information that people want to sell and making sure that it kind of arrives in your inbox, or not inbox, onto your feed. So, you're scrolling up and there's a thing on Power Rangers movie, and you happen to like Power Rangers, so you click on it. And, it's another form of memetics where we just repeat things to each other and we send each other information, and we act excited for something. And they kind of occasionally control this. The Colonies are very much so what the civilization that we were talking about beforehand, where there were walls and rules. Facebook has walls and rules. Twitter has walls and rules. And it is a place of walls and rules within the internet. And this makes people feel safer. It feels like a colony. Okay, we've got these walls. They are protecting us from the dangerous people. And what nobody says out loud is what happens if Facebook is actually one of the dangerous people? What happens when people on Twitter are the dangerous people? And what if they're trying to control you in the same way that the guys who are trying to get people to act or get naked in front of a camera are doing? What if they're trying to control the way you know things? They control, what you know and what you don't know, and they can be very powerful about it. So the other thing about this new world is it is open to anyone. And yes, if you go outside of the colonies, you can actually find websites of people you disagree with completely. And this will be a common thing. Everything is one website away from you. You can get to it without even trying. There is no walls, there is no rules that is stopping you from going to it. And this is scary to people who run the colonies and people who are used to the old form of civilization. In the old form of civilization, we have walls and rules, and you don't talk to such and such because they're such and such. We had these walls and rules when we were in high school. The cliques that we had. These guys did not talk to these guys because of such and such. I didn't have that as much in my high school, so I don't really claim to understand it. But this was a thing at high schools that other friends have gone to, where these people did not hang out with these people because they were another clique. And so you would go into a dining room area or an eating area, and they would all be in their little tables, and there would be walls built in their minds. And they would be so absorbed with what they were doing on their table that they didn't see the other tables. They kind of just focused in on where they were. Well, the internet can let you do that, but it can also let you go to wherever you want to find stuff. And this means that it kind of destroys the ability to control a narrative. The colonies' biggest power is that they can control the narrative. They keep you safe by controlling what you see. And if you can just leave Facebook or the other groups, you can do what you want. But there's a high cost to it. This is a quote from my dad when I was explaining all of the things that were happening. Things are getting cheaper. We're starting to figure out things. The term open source came from people who were inventing computers, and they were just like, why should we not share this? Everybody should have this information. And not just information, but programs and uses of programs and all of that. They didn't care about companies. They didn't care about, what countries should have such and such. They wanted it all. And they thought it was weird that anybody would keep anything hidden. And because of that, their ideology was promote everything to become free. And so I was telling my dad this, and he said, there's going to be a point when everything is free and no one can afford it. And he was right, because we will be stuck in our world, our concept of civilization, as this change is happening in front of us. And because of that, we may be able to get everything for free or really cheap, but we won't be able to afford it because we're out of a job or our civilization is being destroyed. And this is becoming even greater because one of the great parts of the internet is trade and connections. You want to find out about such and such, you go to such and such, and you talk to them. And, that sounds really big, or that sounds really cool, but it means that a lot of middlemen are no longer in the picture. Most of our country is not, the mechanic who fixes your house or who fixes your car. It's the person who wrote the billing program for the mechanic fixing your car, and then the person who wrote the way the car should be fixed, and just every little step for your car to be fixed that has nothing to do with the mechanic and has nothing to do with you. All of these middle groups are getting paid in one way or another. And if we go beyond them in the same way that retail has disappeared, there are tons and tons of jobs suddenly going missing, and it scares people. And we're going to go into a more trade and connections type thing, where the more connections you have, the more likely you can get something. And because the internet is a wild world, you can get connections with anyone. And the same with trade. Once you can prove you can do something, people will want it. And I hate saying this, but they're willing to give you things, but they're not willing to give you money, because money, in the concept that we understand it, doesn't really work in this online world. There are things like cryptocurrency and stuff like that, but they don't really work. So it's this entire discussion of, well, what do we do? How do we deal with this transition? And that's going to be the discussion of the next video. Very likely being released tomorrow or Saturday, and I will see you all then.